right. Are we live? We're live. Here we
Okay.
go. Welcome, one and all, to the Dudecast. This is a Dudeist Roundtable, and we are the Abiding Dudes. I am Adam. With me is my co-host Cal and Skits, and our honored Dude of the Week is Brian. Say hello, Brian.
Hi, nice to join you guys. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being with us. So Brian is with us. For those who don't know, Brian wrote an excellent article for Cracked magazine. Is that?
Yeah.
Mad magazine? No, Cracked magazine, which is online, and it was for the 25th anniversary of The Big Lebowski, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading it, except my section, which we'll get to, but. I was interviewed for it. Well, yeah, I have some grievances. I swear that's not why I brought you on, Brian. It's not an ambush.
Brian, I thought it was a fantastic article. No notes. Keep up the good
Indeed.
work.
It's been a little while
Indeed.
since I wrote, so hopefully I remember everything about
Enough.
it. So,
Well, see, that's the thing is I'm actually here to talk more about the journey, because that's what I think is fascinating. What you told me before you interviewed me for that about how you came to that article, that was the interesting part to me. And then I'm kind of curious, like, sort of what you learned, what your takeaways were about Dudeism, from that whole experience. So why don't you, I mean, maybe we could just start there. Just tell me a bit about like where you were, before you started the article in terms of your knowledge about the Big Lebowski and Dudeism, and then kind of, the process of that whole thing.
well, I mean, I've been a fan of The Big Lebowski for a very long time. I mean, I think, at least since high school, so around 2000, give or take. And I've watched it a lot since, and it's one of my favorite movies. And then we were going to do something for the 25th anniversary. We did like a handful of stories about the Big Lebowski for the 25th anniversary of the movie. And then, we thought like, oh, it'd be funny to do I Convert to Dudeism for a week. And kind of not knowing much about the religion and not taking it all that seriously, to be honest. And then after kind of looking into it more, I was like, oh, this is actually like A, kind of legit, and B, well, not kind of, but like A, legit, and B, like, I feel like I would actually genuinely probably benefit from this, which made me not want to make fun of it in any way. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. So rather than me kind of join Dudeism on a lark and like make fun of it, which I took me as like kind of too cynical for my taste, decided to reach out to a bunch of people who have already joined it and had some impact on their lives. So yeah, that's kind of my journey with it, was not knowing much about it, not taking it all that seriously, and the more and more I dug in, I was like, oh, this is actually like I haven't done much for it, but I feel like I would benefit from the practices. So I was like, I didn't really want to make fun of something that I thought was actually super helpful and like real.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be cynical about it. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that was my journey with it. It was just meeting some cool people and getting to talk to them and learning more and more about it. So
Very cool. I'm sure Cal and Skits might have questions. I know I do, but what were you guys thinking?
Well, I was just going to say, like, with what Brian was saying about that journey there, I think it's probably fairly common among Dudists to have the experience that I had, like, when I was talking to my parents about it. And I offered to officiate my sister's wedding. And my dad just responded, well, no, I'm not going to do that because, it's just a stupid joke, right? And I kind of had to educate him a little bit and show him some of the books that no. And this is why I did not have a total fucking breakdown after my divorce. This is the stuff that helped me through. So it is a very legitimate thing. And Brian, I'm glad you were able to see that in your journey, that it is actually legitimately helpful to us.
yeah, and I think the fact that it wasn't too, what I liked about it was it wasn't too self-serious. Like, I feel like, not that I know maybe I'd have the same experience if I like look into the Church of the Jedi. But what I imagine the Church of the Jedi to be is a bunch of nerds wearing brown robes playing with plastic sticks. And I love Star Wars, but I don't think I would take it seriously. I think I'd be like, this is some goofy shit, and want to make fun of it. And then I think that was my journey with this. Was like, these are just white Russian drinking dudes who have seen the movie too many times. And then I was like, no, there's some real shit going on here. And at no point did it feel like it was like too sacred or self-serious or like, that was really my thing. So that's why my kind of the whole spectrum of the article changed into, hey, here's how Dudeism actually helped me. So,
well, that's one of my favorite things about the religion is how unserious it is. And to me personally, it's helped me so much to take myself and my life so much less seriously, because just that's been one of my favorite things about the movie, watching it over and over and over, is how the dude doesn't take like anything seriously until he does, and then it all gets fucked up. So it's like, it's just such a good reminder not to take things too seriously. That I just can't help but, make that part of the practice as well. Is just not taking anything in life that happens seriously, except for me, the spiritual practices. That's what's serious for me. Not like dire, but like serious in that I make sure I repeat it every day, because whether or not I know it's helping, after 10 years of doing one thing or another, I know, practices help, in ways that you can't see until you react differently to a situation that you're like, oh shit, I might have reacted a lot. I might have gotten a lot more Walter on that situation. Might have pulled a piece out on the lane like a month ago, but damn, I actually was more smoky that time, So, yeah, a strict drug regimen helps.
So since I came as unprepared as possible, and I didn't read the article. I didn't know about the article.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I didn't know about the article. Canadian smoke has been fucking up everything. So you said that you spent a week delving in to Dudeism. I want to know more about that week.
It was more like I probably wrote it over the course. I probably interviewed for it over the course of a couple of weeks, and then over a day or two, transcribed and wrote it and put it together. So.
Okay, well, you said that you got to hang out with, or at least speak with, a bunch of cool dudes. The spectrum across every religion is pretty grand once you start really meeting and talking to people. Were you expecting the spectrum to be as grand as what it was, or was everybody pretty well at the core about the same guy? Like, oh, okay, yeah, man, he likes spiritual stuff and he smokes a lot of Thai sticks. Cool.
No, it was pretty varied. I mean, in age-wise, I think there was one person, I'm trying to remember who, if it's you, Adam, forgive me, somebody who actually got into the religion before seeing the movie.
Oh, no, definitely not me, no.
Okay, there was somebody who was like, who hadn't seen it until after he joined the church. I thought that was interesting.
Pretty funny.
So no, I think it was like a kind of a wide swath of people. I know that it's primarily men in the religion, but I found at least one who calls herself Mother Duderier.
You talked to her?
Yeah, she was great. Yeah,
nice.
And I forget if she's in Scotland. Yeah, talked to her and she was super cool. And she's one of the people who've been around it for a long time. So yeah, it was like a good kind of mix of people, and some people who were religious otherwise, and this was sort of like a way to kind of stick with that. Some people who were like kind of atheistic and just took it as like a good life regimen. So no, it was a wide array of people. So.
And we actually kind of have that range in our little group here, because I know Adam is very spiritual and I'm an apathetic agnostic. I don't know and I don't care. So, but we kind of reach the same conclusions.
I was going to say, why didn't you go Skits? Skits is highly atheistic. Like,
I believe in nothing.
Yeah.
I can't get there.
You were here, man.
I'm probably with you, Cal. Where I'm not a religious dude at all. I don't know if I say straight up atheist. I think probably because, like, I want to leave a little room for, if I'm wrong, I'm not horribly punished for it.
Well,
But
like I kind of got the sense when I was talking to you, Brian, that it's like you acknowledge the existence of something, that you can't explain
no,
or that
I don't know.
then understand.
No, I think it's more like I'm curious and all that, and I respect it. But for me, I have trouble buying into any kind of organized religion whatsoever. And
That's great.
I don't know if I acknowledge the existence of something more so than I'm like, I don't know, maybe there's something there, and I don't want to make him mad if I say he doesn't exist. So
And that's kind of where I am too. Like, I'm curious about the possibility there might be something, but I'm also very cognizant that I might just be, 8 pounds of meat in a biomechanical suit, just traipsing along until one day it all goes dark. I don't know.
Like I don't know. Like, I don't believe in ghosts, but I'm not gonna I'm gonna go spend the night in a haunted house. No, I'm not doing that. It's dumb. Like, it's
I'm
I want
planning
to
on waking up as Neo.
antagonize. What?
I'm planning on waking up as Neo. I thought the whole simulation thing was ridiculous when I first heard it, but man, it's starting to make sense, man. We're all just gigabytes walking around.
Right.
So, my lady friend turned me onto this theory that when they turned on the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, it actually did generate a giant black hole, and we are trapped in the singularity. We are all dead. We just don't know it. And I'm like, well, one, that's kind of bleak, but two, it's an interesting thought.
But if we were in a singularity, why wouldn't we be stuck in the moment of the singularity? How would time continue?
Think how brief our lives are in, like, black hole time.
And time, that is assuming that time is linear.
Also true.
Well, doesn't it have to be on the level of our perception? Like, I'm a fully believer in the multiverse and multi-dimensions, and that we're just quantum goo, going in all directions at all times. But for the sake of for the sake of, like, let's just say this podcast, like, I have to say certain words. I have to say A, B, C, D, E, F, G in this timeline. Maybe in another one I'm saying X, Q, P, R, T. You know what I'm saying?
But maybe that's just a limitation of our brains and what we can perceive.
Yeah, that's the part that trips me out, is like, like the allegory of the cave, like just not knowing what you don't know. Like, the one that trips me out a lot is, like, you look at the entire spectrum of what is it? It's like the entire spectrum of light, even, and the tiny little band of light that we see, and that's just light, not to mention sound, which is also the same thing. There's, like, sound that other animals can hear that we cannot, just like our perception is just such a little, anyway. Yeah. That's why we need fucking Dudeism. Or else
I'd love to see the dude hit some DMT, just like 3 or 4 really, really good hits, and then hear that 15 minutes of what happened.
Right. That'd be a good little side movie too, is like the dude takes acid, and you just see him dropping some tabs when he's younger, and then it just opens up into, like, some trippy ass Bob Dylan song, or, whatever.
Hey, just speaking of side movies, has anybody seen that Jesus movie? Because I haven't. No,
I think Cal told me not to, and I listened.
I tried watching the Jesus Rolls, and it was fucking horrible. So
I've heard
it's terrible
about it. That's made me want to watch it. I'm just curious if anybody's watched it.
It's terrible.
And it's weird.
I'm even willing to watch bad movies, but, like, I can't do that.
No.
Which is why,
especially if it's corrupting a good movie, right? Like, Turturro's a genius. Like, Turturro's such a talented dude, and The Big Lebowski's great. So, like, yeah, it's fun to watch a bad Godzilla movie, but do we want to see a movie that fucks up something that, like, matters to us?
Or something so beautiful.
Yeah.
The mere fact that Cal couldn't even make it all the way through to tell us, is just enough.
Well, I also have ADHD, so I don't know if that contributed, but the movie was fucking terrible regardless.
If you can cheer for the fucking Dolphins for as long as you have, you can't make it through that movie. That movie is fucking bad.
Valid point.
Just
so, Adam, you had a bone to pick about the article?
All right, here we go.
Sure.
You're
Oh,
muted.
he's cut out.
You're muted, bro. You're
Muted.
muted.
You're still muted.
God damn it. Okay. So here's the thing I want to say.
Sure.
I appreciate the fact that it was very well written. It was all factual. You didn't misquote me. So that's the thing.
Okay.
That's why I haven't said anything to you up till now. And it hasn't even like it's bothered me all this time. It's just I've thought about it as a question. And I'm
Okay.
curious, like, did you, when you were rereading it, or okay, here it is. In the spectrum of all the people that you talked to about Dudeism, did you think it was an exceptionally weird thing that I said that to me Dudeism was an add-on to my life, and like, you know, that I have like a main spiritual practice, and that was like, because like we talked for almost an hour about like a whole bunch of shit that you didn't put in there, which I knew would happen, but I just found it interesting that that was almost the only thing you had in the article, was that I said that about it. And I kind of wanted to get your thought process of like, was it just for sizing? Was it just that was the most interesting part of it, or was
Honestly,
I like
I don't remember. Like you know, and this isn't me like passing the buck. But like I quite possibly had more and had some cut out. I don't remember.
Okay.
I do know that I don't like to waste anybody's time entirely. So like sometimes when it's like, oh, shit's got to get cut out, I make sure to like, or if I have to lose 1,000 words, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather have 2 sentences of somebody, even if I spoke to you know, even if it doesn't honor everything we spoke about,
Right.
rather than waste their time entirely and have somebody cut out entirely. I would say, like, if I remember correctly, which this is a month ago, and usually what happens is once I'm done with an article, like, this is months ago, and what usually happens in an article is, like, as soon as I hand it in my editor, all the information just leaves my brain, and it goes away. And I will say that you're the only one who said the add-on thing, which I thought was interesting, in that, like, some people were like, no, I'm an atheist, and I like Dudeism because of this, or I do this. So, like, you said a lot of good shit, if I remember correctly, but the most unique thing you said was, like, it doesn't have to be a dogmatic religion, but you can kind of use the practices of it to add on to whatever else you already have in your life. So you don't have to change your life or unwrite whatever you've known for your entire existence, that you can kind of just add this on to it as a way of personal practices. So, again, it's possible I had more and it got cut.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible I had more. It's also possible that I didn't, and I was trying to get everybody's like different thing. You said a lot of good shit, but the most unique thing I thought you'd said, and you said a lot of good stuff.
That's the thing is, I knew also that there would be people that have like really cool stories around Dudeism, and those are the articles I love the best too. You know, I didn't have one of those cool stories, so like I kind of knew, you know, a lot would be cut. But yeah, it was interesting. But I wanted to say also that I can't even take credit for that articulation of the idea. Like Skits actually was the one that talked about it as an add-on, and it just sort of hit me like, oh yeah, like it can't
I should have interviewed him. It would have been way better.
You know, that's what I'm saying. You really should have.
I probably would have kept a lot more of it. I mean,
right? No. But yeah. So I just want to say, like, that's part of why I think I love the book that I wrote so much, because of this little, like, you know, what do we call it? Like a brainstorming of ideas, you know, just every week.
Absolutely.
It was really cool. And I thought that was really also a well-done article to have so many different perspectives on Dudeism, what it meant to them. Like, and that's the thing, not only is the spectrum of people who are drawn to it very interesting, but the spectrum of like how it's used and in kind of what ways is like also really broad, you know. For some people, it's like a main thing. For some people, it's like just helps with a little thing, you know. It's just cool. It's just really cool.
I will say, like the sometimes, and I do this a lot personally, because brevity is not always my strength as a writer. Is I'll get like an excess of material, like way more than I need, and then I'm like, what do I do now? And so let me see. Like the piece I handed in was 16. Well, the piece that got published was 1,600 words. I wouldn't be surprised if I handed in a 3,000 word thing and it got cut nearly in
Yeah,
half.
yeah.
Because I tend to not always see the best. I tend to not always want to cut it down, and I get indulgent in some of it. So like, it's really about the only thing I kind of fight back on is if sometimes like somebody gets cut out entirely, and I'm like, yo, we got to include something, just because I genuinely feel guilty when people have their time wasted with me. But I think I think boiling it down and trying to get a cross section of here's the interesting. I hate to say soundbite, but like here's the interesting soundbite from each person's story. Like Mother Duderier was like an interesting person who kind of came about this in a weird way quite a while ago. Also, the only woman I spoke to, so I kind of got to give her a decent amount of real estate.
Yeah.
And
What was
some
her
of these other, I don't remember now. Jeez, hold on.
No. That's what I was going to ask is like, what stood out to you from all the people that you talked to? Like, does anything, when you look back on that, like, what kind of stood out to you about the people and their stories?
Oh, I think it was just like I think because it was a cross section. Like I said, I think everybody came about in a different way. Like you had some, like, was it one person was like a religious scholar.
Oh yeah,
and like, which I thought was really interesting. Like he knew about, like, when I was talking to him, we probably talked for an hour about 15 different religions, and I can't remember which person this was, but we talked for a while about a bunch of different religions, and they had been this and they had been that, and they kind of stuck with Dudeism after having gone through a handful of other religions, which I was like, oh, that's interesting. And like,
wow.
Mother Duderier was somebody, like, as much as I didn't want to just have it stick with like, oh, well, she's the only female here, I did have her address, now that I'm looking at it, like the part I took out of our hour discussion was dude can apply to male and female, and how like the female perspective of this religion. So she had a lot to say, but I kind of cherry picked out the part that was like about a female in this religion as opposed to the religion overall. Because it was also like, we didn't like, we thought about interviewing the person who founded it, which I can't remember the name at the moment.
Well, was it Oliver Benjamin or Dwayne Yutzi? I mean, they're the co-authors. I think they're sort of co-founders in a way. Like, they're the co-authors of the Abide Guide. And yeah, I haven't been able to separate if there's one that's much more, influential than the other. But it might be.
I think that on the Dudeism website, I think Oliver Benjamin is listed as the high Dudeist of the latter.
That sounds right. Yeah, that name sounds more. But I mean, like, we thought about interviewing him, and it was almost more powerful to get the followers than it was the founder, right? Like,
well, and he's had a lot of interviews too. He's done a whole lot.
Yeah, so we wanted to do something that hadn't been done before too. Like that was something that we thought like would be an interesting perspective of honoring this by figuring out like there's a lot of different kinds of people in this. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So this is a weird one for me, at least, because so far, over the last year of us having meetings and over the last couple months of us doing this podcast, we've always had people that had come through Dudeism the way that we had. So getting the perspective of somebody that was like, oh, well, I'm going to get fucking paid to learn about this shit. Click, 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 click. It's new. So like, were you a fan of the movie before? I mean, like, I don't even know if
I've been a huge fan since like I was in high school. It's like not my very, very favorite Coen Brothers movie, but it is.
Oh, do tell.
3.
What is?
Oh, brother, where art thou?
Nice. That might be number 2 for me.
They are my favorite living filmmakers. I think that I have something I like about every one of their movies, even the kind of shitty ones like Lady Killers. I wrote a whole article defending Lady Killers. Well, not defending the movie overall, but just saying that I love how much fun Tom Hanks is having in that movie. It's not a great movie, but Tom Hanks looks like he's having fun, and that makes me enjoy the movie, even though I know it's not. So like I have find something I love about every one of their movies, and like I think that No Country is the one that deserved to win the Oscar, and like really is just heavy and beautiful and horrible in all these like great ways, and it's just so well written. I think Big Lebowski's their funniest movie, and obviously their most quotable. And but to me, Oh Brother is this razor sharp, airtight script that to me is, I think, in their whole body of work, it's their best script, and that's the thing that I look for most in a story, is just that the gag, like there's not a lost second in that movie. It's just moves in a beautiful way, and I that's my favorite of their movies. But I love every one of their movies. So
Nice.
And I mean, if you really want to stretch it out, I mean, like the three from the Big Lebowski do transfer very well to what is it? Delbert, Pete, and what the fuck is Clooney's character's name?
Everett. Ulysses Everett McGill.
Everett. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we have Everett as Walter. Fucking, I guess Pete would be closest to the fucking dude. And then, yeah, fucking Dale, Delbert, whatever the hell his name was, that was definitely Donnie.
Total
Delmar. Yeah.
Donnie.
there's so much good stuff in it. I mean, like I love every single one of them. Is out of curiosity, is the Big Lebowski the favorite of all you guys' for Coen Brothers movies?
Probably. I have some that are awfully close. I loved Oh Brother, Where Art Thou. I first saw Raising Arizona when I was like 8 years old, and I've always loved Raising Arizona.
Such a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
But
say that
I mean, Big
Raising
Lebowski's
Arizona,
probably overall favorite.
yeah, Raising Arizona and Lebowski are right there at the number one spot. But I mean, I'm like you said, I have not seen Lady Killers, but I mean, as far as
It's
Coen
not good.
Brothers films,
To be clear, Lady Killers is not good. Neither is Intolerant for Cruelty. That being said, I feel like I'm just sort of in tune with what those guys do, and I found things to like in those two movies. That I didn't know. I also didn't really care for Hail Caesar, which I thought was a little dry, but there's stuff in there I like.
And see, I know that it's not a common opinion, but I did not care for No Country for Old Men.
Really? Oh, I love that movie. What didn't you like about it?
I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
I've watched it and I see good things in it. I loved Javier Bardem, but something about the movie just didn't click for me.
It's so dark.
It's very dark, and like I like Tommy Lee Jones's character. The whole point of him is that he's an old man who chickens out at the end, right? So like, that's not really the classic Western story. That's what I found interesting about it, but it's not a satisfying ending in that way. It's like an old man who's behind the times, and I don't know, like that. I like. There's interesting characters in that movie, but it's it's definitely different.
To answer your question, Brian, about is it my number one? Not only is it my number one Coen Brothers movie, to me, it's like I'm a movie person, and I think it's absolutely the greatest movie ever made. And that was, way before I found Dudeism. So you can imagine my delight when the greatest movie ever made, of course it has a religion about it. Like when I found that out, I was like, of course it does. This is the coolest thing I've ever heard of. Who are these guys who invented it? And I loved their story, and I loved, just the idea of it. So yeah, but I just thought, like, coming at it from a different angle, like, it'd just be so cool. So anyway, I also want to tell you, Brian, that maybe you could actually help me with it, being a writer and all. So we decided, so Skits had the idea. We were talking about, like, we have a discussion, and I'd be curious to hear your take on this too. But there's a lot of discussion around Lebowski communities about, like, should there be a sequel? Some people think, no, fuck that they should never make a sequel, even if it's a great script. Some people are like, well, if it's all the original cast and the Coen brothers do it, and it's a really good script, fine. But, like, I really hope they don't butcher it. And Skits had the idea that I thought was so good that, like, I want to make it happen myself, just for fun, is, like, what's Walter's story? Like, what if there were a prequel just about Walter and, like, his years in Vietnam? And what we've come up to so far is the idea that, like he did definitely go to Vietnam. There were some things that traumatized him, but it's, like, greatly exaggerated, like, how much he actually, was involved. And that's what's kind of funny about it. Is he had, like, medical leave or something, or I don't know. Like, it has to be at its heart a comedy, but it can also be, like, it's about Vietnam. you know? So,
I mean, I don't
anyway.
think there's. I'm a movie guy, and I think a sequel, a prequel, all that stuff bothers me. I just think, for like, not that I think anybody saw Jesus Rolls and thought like, oh, The Big Lebowski isn't as good now, right? But the very fact that there's some shitty sequel to The Big Lebowski out there is not a great thing. I don't think, because it's a great film. It has this amazing legacy. It's got a religion. It's got books. It's got this. It's got fests. It's got fucking shirts, right? Like, it's got everything. I don't think it can benefit from a sequel or prequel or whatever. So I don't think that it's a good idea. Like, I think a prequel. I mean, I think like the idea of exploring Walter's past is probably an area that has rich history. But like, hey, I don't want to see anybody play Walter, but John Goodman, and that the de aging shit doesn't work as well as they think it does. So I don't want to see that. So like,
No.
so for those reasons, like, I wouldn't want to see Walter's backstory, not because there's probably not interesting shit there, but I mean, I think what makes him a rich character is assuming there's kinds of interesting stuff before their story, after it. Like, there's a lot of stuff the dude alludes to having been part of the Coherent statement, all that other stuff. There's stuff in there that you're like, oh, the dude had an interesting full life prior to the events of this movie, and that's cool. But I don't think I want to see them. I don't want to see a sequel. I think even if it's fantastically written, I don't think the legacy of The Big Lebowski would benefit from a sequel. Like, I didn't like when they made that fucking commercial a few years ago. Everybody know what commercial I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, and I mean, it's hard not to love Jeff Bridges, and it's great to see him, whatever. But like, I saw that and I was like, oh, all right. Like, why? Like, why? Why do we need to do
the
that?
same feeling about that. It's true
I
though.
want to
It's like,
counter.
We didn't need it.
I want to counter your argument with fucking Marvel. Okay, number one, they keep fucking making movies. Number two, if I have to have a new Spider-Man every 16 fucking months, you can see an old Walter or young Walter.
I mean, I like Marvel
young,
movies too, but
old
maybe
Walter.
like maybe that's the problem. Is like, to me, I like Marvel movies and I enjoy those things. I think that sometimes they go back to the same well too often, and that's when you kind of get tired of it. Whereas to me, The Big Lebowski is a perfect film or a near perfect film. Like, I'd hate to have anybody fight with it.
Well,
so then here's my. Go ahead, Cal. Go ahead.
yeah, no, it's just I see where you're coming from. Like, at some point when you have something that's good enough, Hollywood kind of needs to learn to leave well enough alone.
Exactly.
Bringing up the Marvel movies, the MCU should have ended after Avengers Endgame. That should have been the end of it.
That was
They
the
had
end
pulled it
game.
off. And
They were
maybe
like, wait a second. What if instead of ending Endgame like we talked about, right? No, good idea. What if we just made more money? We're fucking printing it. It's like,
yeah, that's the problem.
They want to come watch something. They'll literally watch anything we make at this point. Like, they can't lay off. Capitalism can't lay off. Corporate, you know what I mean? Like, oh, now it's Q2. You know, like, got to make that profit again. You know, what have you done for me lately?
I've created the Dudeverse.
Sorry,
Brian
what?
doesn't support it. I've created the Dudeverse, and Brian doesn't fucking support it.
No, I don't. Not at all. I'm sorry.
Right, okay. Here's the thing to me, Brian, is that there
I don't need to
is
see the Smokey miniseries. I'm sorry.
Oh shit, we got to make that too, dude. Oh man, Smokey and the Gang. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
It's just
No.
somebody pulls a gun on him. He's like, "Why the fuck does this keep happening?"
Oh man. No, but like, I want to show Walter.
Brian, no, I didn't.
Dude, I mean, I want to see Walter dabbling in pacifism. You know, not in Nam, of course, but like, I want to see what that means. You know, like, I want to see that. I think that would be so funny. I want to see what started his sick Cynthia thing. You know, what is his sick? Like, there's so many questions, and like, I want to go nuts having fun exploring what would be the funniest thing that could have happened. You know, and to me, here's my thing right now. Right now in the world today, like with that religious scholar, like I totally get where he's coming from, right? There's all these different religions in the world, you know, and there's some modern ones. And arguably the modern ones are like the funniest ones, right? Like, and I'm not talking about like modern like gurus that have like spiritual work in India or whatever, like those guys, no. I'm talking about like specifically Mormonism and Scientology, like where we have the life of the person pretty well documented, like before they started the religion, and then during, and then like up until their death. You know, Joseph Smith, there's a lot of documentation on him. L. Ron Hubbard, a lot of documentation. And to me, those two are like super fucking fascinating. But at their core, it could very easily be argued it's, you know, it's all just a big scam, man. You know, like she kidnapped herself, you know, like it's just, they made it all up. The golden plates in a hat. Like, I don't know. To be fair, if any Mormons are listening to this, I love Mormons. They're all nice when I meet them. But like the story of your founding is absurd. Let's just face it. But
to cover myself legally, he does not speak for all of us.
I will say this. I'm pretty sure Shelley Miscavige did not kidnap herself. Like,
right.
Let's be clear.
Right. Just like it's pretty obvious Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Shelley Miscavige. Yeah. We know exactly what you're talking about. But anyway, I digress. We don't want them to go after us either. These guys are fucking ruthless. Okay.
Nobody's saying anything about the ringer with the magic underwear.
Right. We'll shut up about it now. It's nothing South Park hasn't already said, all right? You saw what happened when you went after them. We'll be more of a pain in your ass. We have more time than they do. Anyway, so my point is, dude, and, you know, I'm talking about the dude here. No, my point is, Dudeism today is still a thriving community. And on one side, you have the people who literally just show up on the internet forums to spout completely nonsensical, completely unrelated quotes from the movie at no matter what is posted. No matter how dumb it's posted, no matter how smart, no matter how thought-provoking, they will just say an unrelated quote. That's fine. But then there are these people in Dudeism who are like growing their lives from it and its practices. And it's like every other religion has like an active side to it. And I don't feel there's really much active happening in the way of Dudeism today. And so to me, like, when I see something that I would like to exist and it doesn't exist, to me, I'm like, well, why don't I just make that thing? And I kind of, that's why I wrote the book, because I was like, I think nobody's written a book in a long time, and I think there's more to be said here. And then the podcast is like, there's more discussions to be had, or at least discussions that I haven't been a part of. You know, I guess there's a Discord server I just learned about. So hopefully we can get into that shit. But like, so my question to you, Brian, is where do we go? I'll explain it to you later, Cal. Cal's, for those who don't know, Cal and Tech are not BFF. So, but Brian, my question to you is, where does Dudeism go from here? How do we keep the boat moving? How do we, you know what I mean? Like us creative types who want to do something kind of new and shiny and not just the same old shit. Like, you know?
I mean, that's a fair question. I don't know. I mean, has it been shrinking or growing, or do you know?
It's growing. Yeah,
it's growing. I think just because like people don't know about it, and then they do, and they get ordained. But like that to me is like where I imagine it stops for most people.
I mean, I would say this from my limited research into it, right? Like, I think that most people who got ordained, paid their whatever it was, $30, got a fucking certificate in the mail, offered to marry their sister and her husband. They said no, and then they just put the paper in a file somewhere, and that was it. I will say, though, I think that, like, there was a significant amount of people who, like, got ordained and then, like, oh, I guess this is actually a thing, and let me look into it more. Like, I didn't get converted by my experience. But I simply grew to respect it, which I thought was, for me, not bad.
kind of all you can ask for. It's all the conversion you need, really. It's like,
right, but I just mean like I think so. I don't know why the answer like where to go from there, but I think like yeah, you're getting people who are like awareness. I think is a big part of it too. Like the fact that people are getting ordained, and yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of like there's a couple of Dudeism Facebook groups, right? At least half of the people commenting were like over the line, and then like you're like clearly this person's not
right,
part of the religion. They just know quotes from a movie they like. But like,
right.
but by having an active Facebook group, by having people still getting ordained and joining the Discord server, somebody invited me to that too. I don't know what Discord is. I wasn't going to learn for this, but like, the fact that those things exist is good. And if it's half the people in there, or even like 2/3 are just Lebowski fans who either don't know there's a religion or are only somewhat aware of it, I think that's okay as long as the people who are using it, like it matters to them and they're continuing the faith or whatever it is. Like the fact that it matters to some people and like that part of the conversation is still growing is good. So I mean, like, where does it go from here? I don't know I don't think I have an answer for that, or am I qualified to give one? But I think it's good that like I'm hoping that you guys aren't mad at the people who just come on and quote Lebowski, even if they have no fucking clue about what the Dudeism is, because like they're growing it, even if you don't like, they're kind of still growing your religion. It's like the people who go to church every like twice a year, right? Like, yeah, they're not really subscribing real good. They're just kind of putting in their lip service every here and there because maybe they want to, right? So like it doesn't. I don't think as long as it doesn't hurt you guys, I think it's all good, you know. And like
No,
once in a while,
yeah.
you'll convert somebody, and it'll matter to the individuals because like the whole point is like it's genuinely helped you three guys, right? And like that's good. That's a win. So like every individual, if out of 200 people who get ordained, 30 of them get interested in Dudeism and 10 prescribe to it, that's fine because those 10 people actually had their life changed for the better because of this. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah, bro. Yeah. Well said. Well said, for sure. And I want to be clear. Those people might be like, the fact that there's so many of them might be annoying at best. But not even that. I don't even think I'm annoyed that that's
I'd be
all.
annoyed, but like that's okay. Like
Yeah,
I'd be
but it's
annoyed.
like
Also,
there are
like
people
I'm not somebody who like ever engages in like. I just think like so much of this shit online is so negative and just people getting into fights over nothing and just so much like if there's anything less dude than arguing on a message board, I can't think of it. Right? Is getting that worked up over virtual nonsense. Like, good lord. So
Yeah.
Well, that's something that we've discussed previously was getting over the Dudeist elitism. Because I myself have been fucking guilty of it. Been sticking to a pretty strict drug regimen, so I don't have anything right off the top of my head. But I mean, just stuff that's like, man, what in the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you talking about? Hey,
sure.
dudes, did you see this shit? And I mean, life goes on, man. Who gives a fuck? 8 point whatever billion people, man. Most of them are gonna be, wrong and not like me and right. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I can get it. I get more bothered by just online negativity than anything else. But like, I think the best you can do is not engage in it.
And that's the thing is like you look at pretty much every major religion, there's a huge part of the world population that has a problem with them, that has something that, they feel wronged by. And here comes Dudeism, just like, everybody's friend, like nobody's enemy.
Yeah.
Not, we're not getting involved in politics. That's not very dude. To tell anyone else what to do, even to say that Dudeism is the right religion. No. It's a really good one, but
Yeah, but it is untainted by like the Dudeism hasn't had its crusades. You're right. Like We haven't had,
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
never
we're
will.
working
I
on it.
think we're all
had mass slaughters of people in the name of Dudeism. So as long as you keep it that way, you'll probably be good.
the world gets so uncool, we go on a crusade handing out joints and oat sodas.
Right.
Anyone?
That's
You guys
better.
anyone
That would be something most other religions can take notes on.
on horseback, I should say. We
Sure.
should do that
Yeah.
on horseback.
I'm not
Yeah.
climbing on no
So-
fucking horse, man. Right?
But yeah, like I have no idea how many copies my book is going to sell. It's sold, a few so far. But like, I feel like if I wrote that Walter prequel book and it was just funny to me and to Skits and to Cal, then,
I mean, I
that'd be
think if you did it in such a way where it was like a graphic novel or a book or whatever, I think that's less concerning because we don't have to imagine. Like, I don't want to see anybody else play Walter but John Goodman.
That's
But
a
like,
good point.
there's a book out there. I have it somewhere. It's like a Hamlet version of
Yeah.
Lebowski. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the two gentlemen of Lebowski. I have
Yeah,
it.
it's great, really
That's
funny.
fantastic.
Yeah, and it's its own thing, and it doesn't threaten the original in some way, right? Because like it wasn't meant to be other than like here's this funny lark that works rather well. Like it's fun. So I mean, like I think if you're doing something that's distinctly different and you want to just do that to fill the story, I don't think there's harm in, again, like a graphic novel or a novel or whatever about Walter. I think it's just if you get into like a major Hollywood sequel, just to kind of, because it's going to seem cynical, right? The Coen brothers have never done it. They've never done a sequel. Here's arguably their biggest movie. They're going to cash in on a sequel. I think I think Lebowski fans would rightfully be suspicious, even if it was the best script ever. That's a lot to live up to.
That's true.
So
I just think if they
but I'm not
consider
gonna say too creative shit. Like if it matters to you, you think you have a story to tell.
I think it'd be funny as shit.
Yeah.
And because like I have theories about Walter that I want to like put out there. And that's like that Walter is very much like the dude himself, and was a lot more like the dude before he went to Vietnam, and is kind of trying to get that back, And then I think it could also be just a very logical, sort of how The Big Lebowski was in many ways an indictment of like modern society, modern masculinity, and things like that. I think it could just very easily and without beating you over the head with it, just be an indictment of, what war does to people and like, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing kind of thing. But anyway, so the question is then, the last question I will ask this evening, Brian, and by the way, if you're noticing the time, we definitely easily filled up an hour. Told you so. So what would that story be called? My top picks are right now Eyeball to Eyeball, the Walter Sobchak story. What was the Over the Line is a very like, of course it would be that. But then I thought of like, I don't know. What would be a good title?
I as much as I think you want to go with something that people will connect with. So I think go with Over the Line and find some excuse to make it relevant to what you're telling. Like, was he on a secret mission in Laos or something? But like, whatever it is, go with Over the Line because it's a quote everybody knows. People like that kind of shit. And like, if whether or not you want to sell something for it or not, like titles are tough. So I would say go with Over the Line. I can't think of another great Walter quote that would be
right. That stands out.
Who would do something like a Hill 341 or something? That way, if anything, you can get the accidental buys from like the historical buffs.
Right.
Get like halfway through the book, you're like, what the fuck am I reading?
Right.
I mean, you can also like have like do you see it as having subchapters?
I mean, yeah, I see it as like
Is
a
it
novel,
one story?
like one story, and here it is. It's the hero's journey, and so we'll just get a tiny glimpse of Walter's like formative years with like his father or whatever. Then we'll cut to him at like 18 or something. Maybe that's around the time he meets Cynthia and develops the sick Cynthia thing. But then for some fucking reason, he's like convinced, sort of like how he convinces the dude that this is like a righteous cause. Somehow he's convinced that it's a good idea to fight the Chinamen in Vietnam. Or whatever, whatever the propaganda was, like he bought into it somehow. But like, even though he was kind of a peace-loving person, there was something that really motivated him. And then like, he resists the call to action, then he gets the call to action, then everything goes wrong, then he loses everything, then everything looks terrible, and then, he has a triumphant whatever. But it's not what you'd expect. It's not a traditional war story. It has, different twists and turns. Like, he's more than you expect, but also less than you'd expect. And like, Hill 364 and Londoc and Quezon are like way different than you think of. You think of their like battles in Vietnam where they lost a lot of people, but like instead you find out like, how Forrest Gump learned to play ping pong, like maybe Walter gets on medical leave and learns to play chess or something, and those were his greatest defeats of chess, something stupid like that. That's not really the idea, but yeah. Anyway, I lost my train of thought.
Chinaman is not the preferred nomenclature.
Come on, dude.
That was another title I thought of. Chinaman's not the. And then I thought, I think we're a little bit. Maybe in the '90s I could have pulled that off, but I
think you get your. But I think you can get your chapters. I mean, I don't know how much you want to dip in on the whole quote thing, but I think Over the Line is probably a good title for it overall. And you can kind of dig into the well for the subchapters too. Like if you title it "I dabbled in pacifism,"
right?
Things like that. Do you have an idea of where your story ends? Because if you don't, I think I have an idea for you.
I thought meeting the dude.
Yeah, that's the place to end it. Don't go beyond that.
I wouldn't go beyond that. No, literally, like he meets the dude, and then it's like it all cuts out.
Yeah, and like it might make sense to have them meet at the bowling alley.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
They meet, and like the way they meet, it's not like a meet cute, but it's just like funny how they meet and super random. And maybe Donnie would be involved somehow. Oh, but here's the thing about the book is I realize in my head, in order to make it like pull you along in a way, I kind of feel like I really want to develop sort of a sidekick type character that actually does die in Nam. Like he's the one with all the valor and he does die, and Walter just like never speaks about him, but like that's his like little buddy, and like there's a lot of funny things that happen with that guy because it can't be the dude, and I don't think it's Donnie. Donnie wasn't in Vietnam. So like who's his like foil, who's the comic relief, who's the the sidekick. So I thought I would have to invent a character that would then have to die, somewhere in the middle toward the end or something. So that's where I'm at with it.
I don't think you need a comic relief character. Like Walter
a foil anyway.
Yeah, I think you need
a character that's completely
Walter is hilarious.
Yeah. He's hilarious.
He's so funny.
But
you don't need someone
like it's like the dude and Walter go so well together, but like who else would Walter go really well with in his younger years, during Vietnam? It's like we all have kind of those people in our lives that see us through different phases in a way. And so it's like, who would be that for Walter in that phase of his life? So it wasn't necessarily comically. Yeah, I'd have to piece that out too. I'd have to like decide how old he is.
See Donnie as being Walter's friend first or the dude's friend first?
Walter's friend.
You think?
I think so. I think he's Walter's friend first.
I mean, maybe they met him at the same time. Maybe Walter and
look, there's only 6 years difference between the two. John Goodman's 71. Steve Buscemi is 65. So I mean, like they're not that far off in age. I mean, Donnie comes off as like the junior member of the trio there, but like, I think that if you're looking to shove in more recognizable characters, the natural one to do is Donnie. So, I mean, why not, right?
Yeah.
Well, see,
So,
what had
put
actually
Donnie in
happened
there.
was Donnie and Walter were working campus security and had to go break up some people that were sitting in on some various administrative buildings.
That's funny if you do
So,
like a whole, like they pass each other by with the dude kind of thing. That's fun.
all right, so we are getting down on time. I'm going to let you guys write your book later. I'm going to at least get in one more question before we have to stop. I try to ask everybody this. I'm going to do two, actually. I'm going to throw in two. So, number one, thinking back to the very last time that you watched The Big Lebowski. I don't want to know your all-time. I don't care. But thinking back to the last time that you watched it, what was your favorite scene? What was the one that just got you out of nowhere?
I mean, that's tough. I mean, I love everything about the movie, but I think that introduction, just the narration from the stranger, just pulls you in a beautiful way. So I don't know if that's my favorite scene, but I would say like it gears me up for the movie in a perfect way, where I'm like I'm just that kind of folksy gravitas to that voice. Like I just love that character. So I don't know if it's my favorite scene, but I certainly think that in the hopes of not picking something that everybody else has picked, I would say maybe it's just the kind of cross section of the introduction to this world.
Nice. Love it. No, I don't think that one's been used yet.
No, that's
Yeah.
quite
Like,
original. I was going to say, I don't think anyone's ever mentioned that. And because it also contrasts with a lot of things people do mention, you know, like the high point of like sexual tension with Maud, or the high point of like, you know, violence in the beginning. Like that's one of my favorite parts, is like when he's getting his head smashed in the toilet, you know, and he just says, it's down there somewhere. Let me take another look. So yeah, very original answer. Sorry, Skits, your second question.
my second question is, if you could be in any scene as a background character, a created character, what scene would you be in? Would you have a line or two? But what scene would you like your person to be in?
Oh, I'd want to be in the bowling alley. I mean, there's something wrong
Any
with
particular
you if you
scene?
don't want to be in the bowling alley. Like that's I love bowling. I'm a bowler myself, so I think I would want to be in the bowling alley. Absolutely. I don't need a
Any
line.
particular scene?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I mean that opening is such a great shot with the procession of bowlers like go one after another. So I guess maybe there. If I were to have a gratuitous cameo, that would be it.
Excellent. No lines, just in the background, dressed as the golf caddy from Happy Madison.
Yeah, that's
Happy
fine. I
Madison,
don't
Happy
need a line.
Gilmore.
That's okay.
One shoe.
Nice.
I could be like,
You
what's
got
his name?
any
Who was the
closing questions?
what was
We
Angel,
shut this down?
what was the guy? What was it Gary?
The
The
bartender.
bartender? Yeah.
No, not the. Oh, sorry, not the bartender. That's not who I meant. Who's Jesus' sidekick?
Oh, Liam.
Yes, I think like I could be Liam's friend. That would be my lot in life.
No, I mean, it works with Brian too. Like, Brian and me, we're gonna fuck you up, man.
Yeah. There you go. It's got the same. Yeah. Cadence.
But no, it is funny. Like, that is one of, I think, the best extras, is how Liam keeps a straight face throughout that entire scene while Jesus is making that whole speech. Like, I just have a lot of admiration for his, you know, acting ability.
Yeah, he holds it together.
Oh man. I no further questions here. How about you, Cal? All right.
I think that we are ready to lead out. You want to lead us out, and Brian, go ahead and stay on the line after we end this, would you?
Sure.
Yeah, well, thank you all for listening to another episode of the Dudecast. Check out Bird Shadow Brand on Instagram and TikTok. Check out the Dude's Guide to Life. And don't get in trouble in Las Cruces, New Mexico. But if you do, give Cal a call. He'll bail you out of jail. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take her easy. Have an oat soda for me. Peace out, everyone.
Take it easy, everybody.